Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another video. In this one, we're going to be jumping into my cash game locks for this Sunday's Week 5 main slate here on Draftkings. Any of y'all playing 50-50s, double-ups, any of those cash games, head-to-heads even, I'm going to be going into some of my favorite plays for cash games this week. It's going to be a pretty chalky week. There's a lot of chalk on the board this week, so I'm going to show y'all what chalk I'm going to be fading, what chalk I'm going to be eating, and it's going to be a great week. So we're going to jump right into this one. If you have not already, please do leave a like on this video. There is a little thumbs up button down below. I really appreciate it. If you do, the support's been great lately. Again, as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, whether it's DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, any DFS or season-long fantasy questions, please leave them in the comment section below. It's going to be something that I'm happy to help with. I actually have been getting a couple questions in my DMs on Twitter, and I'm very happy to help y'all out. So don't hesitate to ask, but let's jump right into this one, starting off at the QB position. The chalkiest quarterback this week, or at least projected ownership-wise, we're projecting Deshaun Watson to be the highest-owned QB, about 14 to 15%. He's playing against Atlanta, who just got exposed by Marcus Mariota. Mariota didn't have the best fantasy week, but his wide receivers, who are average, they both kind of lit it up. So we're projecting Deshaun Watson to be very, very highly owned, most owned quarterback. And one thing I do want to mention real quick, in the Millie Maker this week, they're doing the $100,000 bonus, kind of like a side game, I guess, if you have the top scoring QB wide receiver pair. So it would have to be like Deshaun Watson and D-Hop, or Matt Ryan and Julio. And then if whoever all has that combo wins, they all split $100K. It's really enticing people to do this. So, for example, in the Millie Maker, I will not be stacking my QB and wide receiver. Like I'll have a quarterback and then probably none of their targets, maybe like a wide receiver too, or something like that. But this is that's just for the Millie Maker, none of these other tournaments. So I just wanted to mention that, though, because there's 235,000 people in the Millie Maker. If you're splitting 100K, if there was 1,000 people that played Watson and Hopkins, and that was the proper combo, this is 1,000. That's like 0.3% of the field, it's going to be more people than that. But if it was just 1,000 people and they all had this and that was the best combo, you're splitting $100, or you're getting $100, which is great. But I would rather fade the combo and go for the Millie Maker takedown myself. But I wanted to mention that real quick. Other than that, though, at QB, Watson, again, highest owned for a good reason, 6,700 against an average Atlanta pass defense. And I like to target, I mentioned it in a few other videos, I like to target running backs against Atlanta. This is a week where you're Houston. I'm not really going to be looking into Carlos Hyde or Duke Johnson, just because the upside for me I don't think is there. I do think Watson's a decent play. Again, you don't have to stack him with D-Hop, but I think it's beneficial. I think it's a safer play to stack him with DeAndre Hopkins, but you do not have to. One of my other favorite cash game quarterbacks is actually going to be Matt Ryan. He's not going to be as high owned as he should be, which is not necessarily the best thing for cash, but he's posted 300-plus yards in every single game this year, and the Texans have been just deplorable against opposing wide receiver ones. So for cash games, I am going to be locking in Matt Ryan. As of right now, I'm recording this video on Friday, and I'm probably going to be just plugging in Julio. This looks like a Julio takedown sort of a week. Looks like he could just break the slate here, and he's actually coming off of a relatively, slow week target-wise. 7 targets for Julio is not that 10-plus target Julio we know. But off 9 or 10 targets, when you can get 30 points, he should be getting at least 12 targets a week. This week, I wouldn't be surprised if he did get 12 and he put up that 40 fantasy point week that he is capable of. So I'm pretty high on Julio Jones this week, to say the least. So we're going to lock in that stack just for this cash example. And then this is where it's going to get kind of just chalk. This is everybody's going to take their pick of these top 4, excluding Kamara. Yeah, Kamara's great and everything, but these Dalvin Cook, Zeke, Run CMC, and Fournette, I believe, are the top 4 projected owned running backs. So between McCaffrey, Cook, Zeke, and Fournette, I'm really high on Zeke this week. I think Zeke is just going to – the floor is insane. When his worst game against Green Bay this week is probably going to be 20 fantasy points, that's great. I'm good with that. He's only gotten over 21 game this year. Against Green Bay and that horrible run defense, I don't see him getting less than 20 fantasy points, excluding injuries and things like that. I don't think Green Bay is going to run away with this game, so I don't think Dak's going to have to throw it. But Green Bay's secondary has actually been pretty elite, and their run defense has been horrible. So I really like Zeke. I think he's a safe play in cash, and I think he's a good play in tournaments too because he always can do the same thing Julio can, where he just goes nuts. So I'm plugging in Zeke for cash for sure. Christian McCaffrey's in play every single week. I don't really have to talk about him too much. He can go for 100-plus rushing and receiving in the same game, and he can have multiple touchdowns. He is always, always, always going to be in play. His worst game of the season will be that game against Tampa Bay. I'm okay with playing Christian McCaffrey. He's underpriced. $8,700 for Christian McCaffrey is just not a fair price. Should be more. If you play him, I don't dislike that at all. Dalvin Cook, though, is probably, I prefer Dalvin, and just saving the $300 is as dumb as it sounds for the upside of McCaffrey. I think Dalvin's got the better matchup, and until the Vikings want to start throwing the ball, I think he's a good play too. I wouldn't say he's going to score more points than McCaffrey, but I would just like the savings because we're paying up for these running backs, and if you want to go Zeke McCaffrey, you're going to really be digging deep for the rest of your team here. And then Fournette projected to be like one of the highest owned on the slate. I know he had a huge 200-yard week and got a just ridiculous amount of volume. I don't expect that to carry over. Recency bias is just going to pollute his ownership here. I think he could have a great game, of course, but he's not going to be one of my favorites. The other guy that's actually not going to be as high owned as I think he should be is David Johnson here. One of my favorite cash game plays this week, one of my favorite GPP plays as well. The Cincinnati Bengals we saw them on the primetime game, Monday Night Football, just got smoked. Granted, you had Samuels and Connor. Samuels was taking direct snaps and throwing to Connor, and it was a lot of weird stuff. So the running back numbers might have been a little skewed, but with the injuries on Arizona, I see David Johnson getting at least 8 targets this game. If he gets 8 targets, he's going to catch at least 6 balls, I would think. So there's 6 points right there, and then he's dangerous when he catches these balls, though. He can always break one long. He's got a really good floor, and this game should stay competitive. These teams are horrible. So if he can actually get like 15 rushing attempts, 15 plus over here, and 8 plus targets, his ceiling is there. His floor is very safe. I love David Johnson this week. So that's somebody I'm going to be looking to target. And then this is where it's going to get a little dicey because we're paying up for all these guys that have these good floors and ridiculous ceilings. At wide receiver, I'm going to be looking to save up here, and I really like playing Auden Tate this week as a money saver, salary saver. His size is insane. He's as big as Calvin Johnson, essentially. John Ross is out. This makes him the number 2 target, and we all know how much Andy Dalton loves to throw to his number 2 target when he has more than 0.1 seconds in the pocket. So if he can get time, Auden Tate can get up and grab the ball. I think he's a good salary saver, like I said. He's nothing more than that. I don't think he's a slate breaker. He's not John Ross, but he can really help you save some money and pay up for the other guys and still put up some points. So I do like Auden Tate in cash this week. He should be pretty highly owned. Over here at wide receiver, though, Keenan Allen and I believe Larry Fitz are the top 2 projected owned wide receivers this week. I like Larry Fitz a lot more than Keenan Allen this week. Keenan Allen's volume, don't get me wrong, we all know it's ridiculous. The Denver defense, yes, they haven't looked as good as they normally do, but at the same time, with these other wide receiver options, I'm not super high on Keenan Allen this week. Larry Fitz, though, with all the injuries, should garner at least 12 targets. He should go back up to these numbers here with Kirk out and with Damiere Byrd out. It should be a big week for Fitz, especially against a Cincinnati team that's as bad as Arizona. So if this game stays competitive, it could actually be a really sneaky shootout. A lot of people looking to play Dalton and Kyler. I don't hate either one of them. But at the same time, the offenses are just so bad. The defenses are just so bad. It's hard to tell if it's going to be 7-3 or 35-42. So continuing the wide receiver salary savings, though, I do want to mention Will Fuller. This is kind of a good way to run it back with the Matt Ryan Julio stack. Will Fuller has not performed yet this year with like one of those big Will Fuller games. Doesn't really mean that he has to be a GPP play, though. I think he's a pretty safe play, to be honest with you, in this matchup. playing against that Atlanta secondary. We saw them get burned by A.J. Brown on a couple long ones, or that one long one he had. I think Corey Davis had the other deeper one, but he's just one of those guys. It's like if you just put him on just a deep slant, just let him just get in the middle of the field. And if Watson can connect one time, I think he's just going to he can get 100-plus yards in less than 2 minutes. So I think Will Fuller's a pretty solid play in cash. I don't dislike him in GPPs either. He's not going to be super highly owned. And then for cash, though, I am going to be eating some chalk here. In my cash lineups, I'm just going to plug in Tyler Eifert. He's probably going to be the highest owned tight end on the slate. He should be. That's what we're projecting anyway. And Arizona has just been horrendous against tight ends. Tyler Eifert got 2 end zone targets, I believe, last week. It's just something for 3,300. If he was to just get one of those end zone, grabs and make it a touchdown, he's already going to be at value. So it's a value play, cheap tight end, and it's going to be a popular one too. Coming to defense, though, this is where I'm still kind of fluctuating. There's about 3 defenses that I'm considering playing. I love the Pats defense against probably the bottom 2 or 3 offenses in the league. Washington, Cincinnati, and Miami have the worst offenses in the league, probably between Washington and Miami for the bottom 2. Hard not to say Miami, but Washington just looks horrendous. They don't even know who their quarterback is. So with the numbers that they've been putting up here, New England's defense is definitely a good floor but ridiculous ceiling play. If you want to pay $4,300 for a defense in cash, I don't know if that's necessarily the best move, but it's definitely going to be a good play. It's something that I'm not scared to do for sure, because if you were to do that, and then that saves you $5K for your flex, there's a lot of good flex plays. I think this week, James White's in play for sure. A little correlation there with the Pats D. He's got a good floor. I don't expect this game to stay very competitive, so his targets might go down a little bit, but I still think he's a decent play nonetheless. And then somebody else that I think is also pretty safe, though, is going to be Cortland Sutton. The Broncos playing in Los Angeles. Joe Flacco obviously has picked his favorite target here in Sutton, and he had, I think, 2 touchdown grabs. He had 2 touchdown grabs last week. He's getting the red zone looks. He's just a really talented wide receiver, and he's a wide receiver 1, I think, in Denver now, surpassing Emmanuel Sanders. Flacco just seems to really like throwing the ball to him, so I think he's a good play. I assume they'll be trailing the Chargers, or it'll stay very competitive, one of the 2. But I don't see Denver, going ahead and ground and pounding the ball. So Sutton should get some looks, and I'm okay with playing him in cash for sure. So those are some of my favorite cash takes this week. And let me mention one other defense, though. The revenge narrative. The Bears defense, Khalil Mack going back to Oakland, playing in Oakland. It should be a very spicy environment. What worries me is the Bears offense being able to keep the ball. And if Oakland's offense gets too many opportunities, they will score points. I don't know why. I just see the Khalil Mack defensive touchdown. I don't know if it's going to pick, fumble, whatever. But, I mean, that is a bad man. And if he wants something, he can go get it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him do something crazy this week, just whether it's sacks or tackles for losses. I could see Khalil Mack having a nutty week. But I wanted to mention the revenge narrative, though, because I think it's a pretty viable play. But those are my cash game takes for this week. I'm going to be uploading my GPP takes tomorrow morning, Saturday morning. And then Sunday morning, bright and early, I will have my Sunday Night Football Showdown video posted to this channel. So if you have not already, again, please do leave a like on this channel. The support has been, or a like on this video. The support has been absolutely insane lately. I really appreciate all the comments and activity. And I can't wait to keep posting more content for you guys. And let's have an insane week. It's going to be a good one. So thank you very much for watching.